The day the sky turned black was a Tuesday. Not that days of the week mattered anymore. Joe Hansen remembered standing on his front porch, coffee mug in hand, watching as the massive crystalline ships blotted out the sun. The birds had stopped, singing first. Then came the silence. Then the screams. 3 weeks later, humanity had fallen. The Vraxians, as they called themselves, had weapons that turned tanks into puddles of metal and shields that made nuclear strikes look like firecrackers. Their tall, insect-like forms moved with unsettling grace through the streets of conquered cities, six-fingered hands gripping weapons that hummed with strange energy. Joe watched it all unfold from his cabin in the Montana wilderness. A former Marine with 2 tours in harsh places, he knew when to fight and when to hide. This was time to hide. Military forces in 17 more countries have surrendered, said the nervous reporter on the emergency broadcast. Citizens are advised to comply with all Vraxian directives. Resistance is... The broadcast cut to static. Joe switched off the radio. Through his window, he could see thin trails of smoke rising from the direction of the nearest town. He packed, quickly, hunting rifle, ammo, dried food, water purifier, first aid kit, the essentials for a man who was no stranger to survival. By nightfall, he was deep in the national forest, moving silently through terrain he knew better than the lines on his palm. The quiet was unnatural. Even the insects seemed to sense something was wrong. On the 3rd day, Joe found footprints that weren't his own. Human footprints. He followed them cautiously until voices drifted through the trees. "I'm telling you, they can't handle the rain," a woman was saying. The patrol near the highway was caught in that downpour yesterday. They were sluggish, disoriented. Joe stepped into the small clearing, hands visible. "Friendly," he said simply. The woman spun around, a makeshift spear pointed at his chest. Behind her, a balding man in glasses lowered a ham radio he'd been tinkering with. "Name's Joe Hansen, former Marines. I'm not here to cause trouble." The woman lowered her spear slightly. "Linda Carter. I was a doctor at Mercy Hospital before they came." She nodded to her companion. "That's Frank Wilson. He taught physics at the community college." Frank nodded, his eyes wary behind smudged glasses. "You alone?" "Yes, heading deeper in." "They haven't come this far yet." Linda and Frank exchanged glances. "You might want to stay," Linda said. "We've been watching them for days. There's something strange going on." That night, huddled around a small, smokeless fire, Linda explained what they had observed. They avoid the forests. Their patrols stick to roads and open areas, and when it rains... She leaned forward. "They seem to be in pain. Their armor starts to... I don't know how to describe it. Dim? Flicker?" Frank nodded eagerly. "Their technology seems to respond poorly to certain environmental factors. I noticed their ships make different sounds when flying over the lake versus over the town. Something about our environment affects them." Joe considered this. "Have you seen anyone else out here? Other survivors?" "A few," Linda said. "Most heading west. There's talk of resistance forming in the mountains." "And what about you two? Just observing?" Frank patted his radio. "For now. I'm trying to make contact with other groups, share information. The more we know about these things, the better chance we have." 100 miles east in what was once called New York City, Samantha Miller walked with her head down through streets now dominated by towering Vraxian structures. Crystal spires rose between skyscrapers, connected by glowing bridges that pulsed with energy. Checkpoints stood at every major intersection where humans were scanned and sometimes taken away, never to return. Samantha clutched her translator badge tightly. The small crystal disc marked her as useful to the invaders, one of the few humans selected to facilitate communication between Vraxian commanders and the new human administrators. The badge kept her fed and housed, while others starved. In the streets, it also gave her access. "Approaching Sector Command," announced the automated voice as Samantha neared the former United Nations building, now the primary Vraxian control center for the eastern seaboard. The massive doors slid open, revealing the alien architecture that had consumed the building's interior. Crystal grew like vines along every surface, pulsing with soft blue light. Translator Miller, report to Level 7, a Vraxian voice buzzed through her earpiece. The aliens never mastered human speech. Their mouth parts couldn't form the sounds, but their technology converted their clicks and hums into flat, emotionless English. Level 7 was restricted. Samantha had never been permitted there before. Her heart raced as the crystal elevator carried her upward. The higher the level, the more important the information, and information was power. The doors opened to reveal a vast chamber where a dozen Vraxians huddled around holographic displays showing star maps. They barely acknowledged her as a commander approached, its carapace marked with golden stripes, indicating high rank. Translate immediate, it clicked, mandibles twitching with what Samantha had learned to recognize as agitation. Message for human authorities. Samantha nodded, taking her position at a crystal console. But as the commander dictated, Samantha noticed something on a nearby screen. A message in Vraxian script. Her weeks of secret study allowed her to recognize certain symbols. Emergency. Degradation. Containment failure. And most interesting, pursuit. The commander finished dictating standard threats and demands, but Samantha's mind raced. The Vraxians were worried about something. Something was pursuing them. Earth wasn't their final destination. It was their hiding place. Later that night, in her small apartment in the human quarter, Samantha carefully noted everything she had seen. The Vraxians maintained tight control over information, but their arrogance made them careless around humans they considered inferior. A distant explosion rattled her windows. The resistance, small but growing bolder, had struck again. The aliens would respond with brutal efficiency, as always. But for the first time, Samantha wondered if their control was as absolute as it seemed. Back in the forest, Joe stood watch, while Linda and Frank slept. Something moved in the undergrowth, not an animal. Too deliberate. He raised his rifle. A young man emerged, hands raised. "Don't shoot," he whispered. "I've got news from the east." He looked over his shoulder nervously. "They're building something big, and they're scared of something bigger." Joe lowered his weapon. "Come on then, we've got a lot to discuss." In the darkness, as humans whispered and planned, a Vraxian scout ship passed overhead, its engines making an odd whining noise in the damp night air. Inside, instruments flickered as warnings flashed across alien screens. Earth's atmosphere was doing something unexpected to their systems. Something worrying. The hunt had become the hunted. The invaders were now the trapped. They just didn't know it yet. 3 months passed since the Vraxians took over Earth. The leaves changed color and fell from the trees. The first snow dusted the mountains around Joe's wilderness camp, which had grown from 3 people to 27. Joe kneeled beside a creek, filling water bottles through a filter. Linda approached, her breath visible in the cold air. "The radio team picked up a transmission from the East Coast group," she said. "They confirmed what we suspected. The aliens are getting sick." Joe nodded. They had noticed it in the Vraxian patrols that ventured near their camp. The alien movements were slower, less coordinated. Their armor, once brilliant and shimmering, now appeared dull in places, as if something was eating away at it. "Did they say what's causing it?" Joe asked. Capping the water bottle, "Frank thinks it's bacterial, something in our soil that their bodies can't handle." Linda pulled a small notebook from her pocket. "They sent us information about patrol patterns in 3 more cities. It's happening everywhere. The aliens are sticking to urban centers, avoiding rural areas completely." Joe stood, scanning the tree line out of habit. "It's not just the bacteria. It's everything about Earth. The air, the water, the magnetic field. Earth is fighting back." Back at camp, Frank was examining a piece of alien equipment they had salvaged from a crashed scout ship. The small crystal device had once powered the ship's communication system. Now it sat on a makeshift table, connected to sensors Frank had built from spare parts. "Look at this," he said, as Joe and Linda entered the tent. He pointed to readings on a laptop screen. The crystal's energy output drops by 30% when exposed to our soil samples. It drops even more when we add water. Joe leaned closer. Can we use this? Frank nodded excitedly. If we can disrupt their power sources, we can disable their weapons, their shields, maybe even their ships. A young woman named Kate burst into the tent. Patrol coming. 6 units moving fast. Everyone scrambled to their positions. Months of drills had made them efficient. The camp disappeared in minutes, people and equipment hidden in underground shelters and tree blinds. Joe, Linda, and Frank watched from a ridge as 6 Vraxian soldiers moved through the valley below. Their movements were sluggish, especially the one at the rear. Its armor flickered, patches of its exoskeleton visible beneath failing energy shields. They're looking for something, Linda whispered. As if answering her, the lead alien stopped and removed a device from its belt. It emitted a high-pitched sound that made Joe wince. The alien spread out, scanning the ground and trees. They're detecting something, Frank said. Maybe our equipment? The struggling alien at the rear suddenly collapsed. The others turned, their clicking language growing agitated. They gathered around their fallen comrade, then lifted it and retreated quickly the way they had come. Did you see that? Linda's eyes were wide. It just fell. No injury, no attack. It just fell. Frank was already scribbling notes. We need to get a sample from where it stood. There might be something there that affected it. In New York, Samantha walked briskly through the human quarter, a datapad clutched under her arm. Her position, as translator, had been upgraded to administrative assistant, giving her access to more Vraxian communications. The streets were less crowded now. Food shortages had worsened, and the winter cold cut through the thin clothing allowed to human workers. But Samantha barely noticed. Her mind was focused on what she had discovered that morning. The Vraxians were dying. Not quickly, not all at once, but dying nonetheless. Their medical facilities were overwhelmed, their commanders were quarreling over dwindling resources, and their long-range sensors were constantly scanning deep space. Samantha turned down an alley, checking to make sure she wasn't followed. At the third door, she knocked a pattern. 3 quick, 2 slow. The door opened to reveal a cramped apartment where 4 people huddled around a table. Maps and notes covered every surface. I have news, Samantha said, closing the door behind her. And data. Lots of data. She connected her datapad to a modified human computer. Pages of alien text and diagrams appeared on the screen. I downloaded this from their medical database, she explained. Their exoskeletons are breaking down. Something in our environment is corroding their biological armor. A man named Paul studied the diagrams. Once a biology teacher, he now led this cell of the urban resistance. It looks like a fungal infection, he said. See these patterns? It's spreading through their systems like a disease. Not just any disease, Samantha added. An Earth disease, something they have no immunity to. Can we weaponize it? Asked another member of the group. Samantha smiled grimly. We won't have to. Earth is already doing it for us. Back in the forest camp, Linda carefully examined soil samples under a microscope they had salvaged from an abandoned research station. Joe and Frank watched intently. There, she said, pointing to the screen. That bacteria shouldn't be able to eat through metal, but look what it's doing to this piece of alien armor. On the screen, tiny organisms surrounded a fragment of the Vraxian's shell, slowly dissolving it. It's not just any bacteria, Frank said. It's specifically attacking their materials. Like Earth evolved it just for this purpose. Or, Joe suggested, like the Vraxians are especially vulnerable to what Earth already has. Linda sat back, thinking. We need to spread this information. Every resistance group needs to know what we've found. Frank gestured to their radio equipment. We can broadcast on the emergency channel tonight. The aliens don't monitor it anymore. They think it's obsolete. That night, as the camp slept, Joe stood watch under a sky filled with stars and the ominous shapes of Vraxian ships. He thought about what they had discovered. Earth itself was their greatest ally. The planet's bacteria, fungi, magnetic field, even its weather, all were slowly breaking down the invaders. He remembered something his grandfather used to say: humans don't own the Earth. We're just renting space, and nature can evict us anytime. Now it seemed nature had chosen sides, and it wasn't with the invaders. A shooting star crossed the sky, or maybe it was a Vraxian ship breaking orbit. Joe couldn't tell, but something was changing. The balance was shifting. Miles away, in the heart of Vraxian territory, a commander stared at disturbing reports from across the planet: power failures, weapon malfunctions, spreading sickness. The humans were becoming bolder, attacking patrols, sabotaging equipment. But worse than the humans was this planet itself. Something about it was hostile in ways their science hadn't predicted, and the long-range sensors had detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The commander clicked an order to its subordinates: accelerate the construction of the defense array, double the patrol radius, find a solution to the biological degradation. Time was running out. The hunters were coming, and Earth was becoming a trap rather than a refuge. 6 months after the invasion, winter gripped the land. Snow covered the mountains and forests where Joe's group had established a permanent base. What began as a small camp of survivors had grown into a community of over 100 people. Hunters, doctors, engineers, farmers, everyone had skills to contribute. Joe stood at the edge of the camp, watching as a group of fighters prepared for a mission. They wore thick winter clothing with special pouches containing glass vials of dark liquid, their newest weapon. Linda approached, carrying more vials. "This batch is stronger," she said. "The bacteria reproduce faster in the growth medium we created." Joe took one, examining the murky contents. "Still amazes me that dirt can bring down an alien empire," Linda smiled. "Not just dirt, specific bacteria that evolved in our soil over millions of years. They consume certain metals and minerals found in the Vraxian armor and technology. To the bacteria, the aliens are just food." Frank joined them, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Radio reports from the Western groups confirm our findings. The aliens are abandoning smaller outposts. They're consolidating their forces in major cities." "Retreating," Joe said. "Not retreating," Frank corrected. "Regrouping and building something big. The Chicago Resistance sent pictures." He handed Joe a grainy photograph showing a massive structure rising from the center of the ruined city. Some kind of array or antenna. They're building similar structures in other cities too. "Communication devices?" Linda suggested. Frank shook his head. "Too big for that. More like sensors or weapons." The mission team finished their preparations. Joe addressed them before they departed. "Remember the plan. You hit the patrol route near the highway. Use the bacteria weapons first, then conventional. Attacks only after their shields fail. Avoid direct combat if possible." The team leader, a woman named Diane who had been a police officer before the invasion, nodded. "We'll be back before dark. Save some dinner for us." As they disappeared into the trees, Linda touched Joe's arm. "They'll be fine. The aliens can barely function in this cold." Joe nodded, but his expression remained serious. "It's almost too easy now. That worries me." In New York, Samantha hurried through the underground tunnels that connected Resistance safe houses. The human quarter had changed dramatically. Vraxian patrols were less frequent. Power outages lasted longer. Food distribution had become erratic. She reached a heavy door and knocked the secret pattern. Inside, Paul and his team were gathering equipment. "Did you get the information?" he asked. Samantha nodded, removing a small data device from inside her coat. "Complete schematics of the defense array they're building. But it's not what we thought." She connected the device to their computer. Images appeared showing the massive structure that now dominated Central Park. "It's not a weapon," she explained. "It's a detection system. They're watching for something coming from space." Paul studied the images. "The thing they're running from?" "Yes. They call it the Collective. Based on what I've translated, they're..." Some kind of advanced civilization that has been hunting the Vraxians across multiple star systems. Why? What did the Vraxians do? Samantha's expression darkened. They destroyed worlds, many worlds. The Vraxians aren't refugees, they're criminals, and they thought Earth would be a good hiding place. A young man named Greg looked up from his radio equipment. I've got something from the Western groups. They captured a Vraxian commander in Denver. Everyone gathered around the radio as a scratchy voice came through. High-ranking officer. Armor severely degraded by bacterial infection. It's talking, giving information. Says nearly 30% of their forces are already incapacitated. Their ships can't leave Earth's atmosphere anymore. Something about our magnetic field disrupting their navigation systems. Samantha and Paul exchanged looks. We need to coordinate with all resistance groups, Paul said. If what the commander says is true, we can start taking back territory. And what about this collective? Samantha asked. If they arrive, are they friends or just another enemy? Nobody had an answer. 3 days later, Joe's group successfully ambushed a Vraxian patrol. The bacterial weapons worked perfectly. When sprayed on the aliens, their armor began dissolving within minutes. Their energy weapons malfunctioned in the cold. The patrol was eliminated with no human casualties. But they found something unexpected on the bodies. Each Vraxian carried a small device that emitted a steady pulse. Frank examined one back at camp. It's a personal shield, but not against weapons, he explained. It's designed to protect against microscopic organisms. They're trying to shield themselves from Earth's bacteria. Is it working? Joe asked. Not very well. Our bacteria evolved here. They adapt faster than the Vraxians can develop countermeasures. Linda entered the tent, excitement on her face. We just got a message from Samantha's group in New York. They've made contact with resistant cells across the country. We're not alone. There are thousands of us now, all using the same bacterial weapons. Joe felt a surge of hope. For the first time since the invasion, humanity had a real chance. What's the plan? Coordinated attacks on all major Vraxian strongholds during the next big storm. Their technology fails in heavy rain and electrical interference. We hit them when they're weakest. The storm came 2 weeks later. Dark clouds rolled across the continent, bringing thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Perfect conditions for an attack. Joe led his team toward a Vraxian outpost that controlled the regional water supply. Through night vision goggles, he could see the alien guards moving sluggishly, their armor flickering as raindrops hit it. Remember, he whispered to his team, spray the bacterial solution first, then attack with conventional weapons. Stay in the trees as much as possible. They moved silently through the rain, approaching from multiple directions. Joe gave the signal, and they attacked. The battle was brief, but intense. The Vraxians, already weakened by Earth's environment, and the storm, couldn't maintain their shields against the targeted bacterial assault. Their weapons malfunctioned in the rain. Within 20 minutes, the outpost was under human control. Similar attacks occurred simultaneously across the country. For the first time, the invaders were on the defensive. As dawn broke, Joe stood on the roof of the captured outpost, watching the storm move east. Linda joined him, her face showing both exhaustion and triumph. Reports are coming in, she said. We've taken back territory in every region. The Vraxians are retreating to their major strongholds. Joe nodded, but something troubled him. It seems too easy now, like they're not even trying to hold ground anymore. Frank appeared, his expression grim. You might be right. I've been analyzing their communication equipment. They've stopped talking about controlling Earth. All their messages are about something coming. Something that terrifies them. In orbit above Earth, unseen by humans or Vraxians, a small probe emerged from the darkness of space. It scanned the planet briefly, then sent a signal toward the distant stars. The hunters had found their prey, and Earth was about to become a battlefield once again. The sky changed on a clear spring morning. People across Earth looked up to see new lights among the stars. Not the crystalline ships of the Vraxians, but smooth, silver objects that moved with impossible grace. They appeared suddenly, dozens of them, forming a ring around the planet. Joe watched them through binoculars from the roof of what had once been a Vraxian outpost, now the headquarters of the Eastern Resistance. Frank stood beside him, monitoring radio frequencies. "The Vraxians are panicking," Frank said, adjusting his equipment. "All their communications just went into emergency mode." Linda joined them, her face tense. "Do you think it's the collective? The ones the Vraxians were running from?" Before Joe could answer, every radio and communication device in the base activated simultaneously. A calm, melodic voice spoke in perfect English. "People of Earth, we are the collective. We mean you no harm. We have come for the Vraxian criminals who invaded your world. We offer our assistance in removing them from your planet." The message repeated in different languages, reaching every corner of the globe. Frank looked at his equipment in amazement. They bypassed all our systems. They're broadcasting on every frequency at once. "Can we respond?" Joe asked. Frank shook his head. "Not with what we have here," the voice spoke again. "We request dialogue with human leadership. 2 representatives will be transported to our vessel for consultation." A set of coordinates followed, a location 50 miles from their base. Joe looked at Linda and Frank. "It could be a trap. Or it could be the help we need to finish this," Linda said. "The Vraxians are weakened, but they still hold major cities. With advanced technology from the collective, we could end this quickly." "Too convenient," Joe muttered. "Why would these aliens care about helping us?" The decision was made through hurried radio conferences with other resistance groups. Someone had to meet with the collective. Joe and Samantha were chosen. Joe for his military experience, Samantha for her knowledge of alien language and technology. They met at the coordinates, a clearing in what had once been a state park. Samantha had traveled for days to reach the meeting point. She looked tired but determined. "Any idea what to expect?" she asked Joe as they waited. "None, but stay alert. We know nothing about these new aliens except that they scare the hell out of the Vraxians." A light appeared above them, growing brighter until they had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, they were no longer in the clearing. They stood in a white room with curved walls and a window showing Earth below them. "Welcome aboard." A tall figure entered. It looked almost human, but too perfect. Skin like polished marble, movements too fluid to be natural. "I am Guide. I speak for the collective." Joe kept his hand near his weapon. "Why are you here?" "The Vraxians are criminals we have pursued across 17 star systems," Guide explained. "They have destroyed developing civilizations, harvested resources illegally, and violated our most sacred laws. We are here to bring them to justice." "And Earth?" Samantha asked. "What do you want with our planet?" "Nothing. Your world is under our protection now. We will remove the Vraxians and provide technology to help you rebuild." Guide gestured, and a table rose from the floor. It displayed images of advanced medical equipment, clean energy sources, and transportation systems beyond human understanding. All, "This can be yours," Guide said. "We ask only for your cooperation in capturing the remaining Vraxians." Joe and Samantha exchanged glances. The offer seemed too good to be true. "Why help us?" Joe asked. "What do you get from this?" Guide's expression didn't change. "The collective believes in balance. The Vraxians disrupted that balance by attacking your world. We restore it by helping you." They were returned to Earth with communication devices to coordinate with the collective and samples of technology as proof of good faith. The devices could heal wounds instantly and generate clean water from air. Within days, collective ships launched precision strikes against Vraxian strongholds. Their weapons cut through alien defenses like they weren't there. The invaders who had seemed so powerful were now running for their lives. But something bothered Joe. The collective attacks never harmed humans or Earth's infrastructure, which showed impressive precision. But they also never captured Vraxians alive. Every strike was lethal, every target destroyed completely. Back at base, Joe shared his concerns with Linda and Frank. "They're not capturing criminals for justice. They're eliminating all evidence." Frank had been studying the communication device the collective provided. He looked up with worry in his eyes. This thing isn't just for talking, it's scanning us, our biology, our technology, everything. Why would they need to do that if they're just here to help? Linda asked. The answer came from Samantha, who arrived at their base the next day with disturbing news. Using her knowledge of alien language, she had secretly accessed data on a collective ship during a coordination meeting. They're not saviors, she told them in a secure room away from any collective technology. They're collectors. Both species, Vraxians and humans, have unique biological elements they want to harvest. For what purpose? Linda asked. Evolution. The collective absorbs beneficial traits from other species. They don't want to help us, they want to study us, then farm us. Joe remembered Guide's perfect appearance, too human yet not human at all. They're not capturing the Vraxians for justice. They're eliminating competition. Outside, a collective ship glided silently overhead, its silver surface reflecting the sun. Beautiful and deadly. We need to warn everyone, Frank said. Tell all resistance groups to stop cooperating. No, Joe said after a moment of thought. Not yet, let them think we're still allies while we prepare. Prepare for what? Linda asked. If the Vraxians couldn't stand against Earth's environment, maybe the collective can't either. Joe nodded slowly. Exactly. The Vraxians were weakened by our bacteria, our magnetic field, our weather. The collective ships haven't landed. They stay in orbit or high altitude. Maybe they know Earth is dangerous to them too. Samantha's eyes widened with understanding. We need to talk to the Vraxians. The ones that are left, Joe agreed. We need to offer them a deal. Frank looked shocked. A deal? With the aliens who invaded us? Yes, Joe said grimly. Because we might need each other to survive what's coming. Earth is our home, our strength. Now we need to make it a weapon against a new enemy. As he spoke, more collective ships entered. Orbit. Silver sentinels surrounding a blue planet. Watching. Waiting. Planning. The Vraxians had been the invaders. Now they were the hunted. And humans were about to show both alien species why Earth belonged to them. Making contact with the Vraxian leadership was not easy. Most of the aliens were now confined to a few major cities, their numbers reduced by Earth's hostile environment and collective attacks. But Joe had a plan. We need to capture one alive, he told his team, preferably an officer. They set a trap near what remained of Chicago. The Vraxians still sent out small patrols, mostly to gather resources. Joe's team waited patiently as a group of 4 aliens approached their position. When the moment was right, they sprayed the special bacterial solution, weakening the Vraxian armor. But instead of killing them, they used nets and restraints to capture the patrol leader. Back at the resistance base, the alien was kept in a special room where the air was filtered to slow the effects of Earth's bacteria. Joe, Linda, Samantha, and Frank entered cautiously. The Vraxian commander looked pitiful now. Once gleaming armor was dulled and corroded. Its movements were slow and pained. We need to talk, Joe said. About the collective. The alien's reaction was immediate. Its body language, which Samantha had learned to read, showed fear. They will harvest everything. It clicked in its language, which Samantha translated. First us, then you, it is what they do. We know, Joe replied. That's why we're here. We have a proposal. The commander listened as Joe outlined his idea. An alliance, temporary, but necessary. The Vraxians would share their knowledge of collective weaknesses. Humans would offer a way for some Vraxians to survive. Why should we trust you? The commander asked through Samantha. Because we both want to live, Joe answered simply. And neither of us can defeat the collective alone. After hours of negotiation, they reached an agreement. The remaining Vraxian forces would withdraw from human cities completely, retreating to designated safe zones. In exchange, humanity would help them modify their armor to resist Earth's bacteria temporarily. More importantly, the Vraxians revealed crucial information. The collective had one critical weakness. Their perfect bodies, enhanced through countless biological absorptions, were highly sensitive to sudden environmental changes. Their systems could not adapt quickly enough. That's why they stay in orbit, Frank realized. They're afraid of direct contact with Earth. Can we use that? Joe asked the Vraxian commander. Perhaps, it replied. Our scientists were developing a device to amplify Earth's magnetic field before the collective arrived. It was meant to help us adapt, but it could be modified. Linda understood immediately. If we amplify the magnetic field enough, it could disrupt their ships, maybe even their biology. And I know how to make the bacteria more aggressive, Frank added. If we could deliver it to their ship somehow. The plan took shape rapidly. The Vraxians would complete their magnetic amplifier using the design data from their command centers. Human resistance groups would prepare the bacterial weapon and build delivery systems. Together they might have a chance. Working with their former enemies felt strange, but necessity overcame hatred. Within days, Vraxian engineers were collaborating with human scientists in a remote mountain facility. The collective, meanwhile, continued their liberation of Earth, unaware of the alliance forming beneath them. Their ships destroyed the remaining Vraxian strongholds with surgical precision. Their representatives spoke to human leaders about a glorious future partnership. Samantha attended these meetings, smiling and agreeing while gathering intelligence. The collective was preparing for the next phase, establishing ground bases, to begin their cultural exchange program. They're going to land in 3 days, she reported back. Major sites across the globe. That's our window. On the eve of the attack, Joe visited the magnetic amplifier facility. The device was massive, cobbled together from Vraxian technology and human ingenuity. It looked like a giant antenna surrounded by power generators. Will it work? He asked Frank, who had been overseeing the project. In theory, yes. It should create a magnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt any technology in low orbit, but we only get one shot. The power requirements will burn out most of our systems. Linda approached with containers of the enhanced bacterial solution. The delivery systems are ready. Once their ships start failing, we hit them with this. The next day, the collective announced their arrival ceremony. Silver ships descended toward major cities worldwide, ready to make planetfall for the first time. Guide's voice broadcast globally. Today marks the beginning of a new era for Earth. The collective welcomes you into our family of civilizations. That was the signal. Joe gave the order, and the magnetic amplifier activated. The effect was immediate and dramatic. A visible wave of energy spread across the sky. Collective ships faltered, their perfect trajectories disrupted. Some began to fall. Others managed to maintain altitude but clearly struggled. Guide's broadcast cut off mid-sentence. Emergency signals blared across all frequencies. Phase 2, Joe commanded. Across the planet, resistance fighters launched the bacterial weapons, missiles designed to break apart in the atmosphere, spreading the enhanced bacteria in clouds that would reach the failing ships. The collective responded with desperation. Some ships attempted to flee, only to find their navigation systems failing in Earth's amplified magnetic field. Others fired weapons blindly, but their accuracy was gone. In orbit, the bacteria reached the damaged ships, designed to consume Vraxian materials. The microorganisms discovered the collective's vessels were partly biological and began breaking them down rapidly. One by one, the silver ships fell from the sky or retreated to deep space. The few collective representatives already on Earth found themselves succumbing to the same environmental effects that had weakened the Vraxians. 3 days later, the last collective ship vanished from Earth sensors. The planet was quiet again, free from both invading forces. In what had once been Central Park, Joe, Samantha, Linda, and Frank met with the Vraxian commander. Around them, humans and a small group of surviving Vraxians worked together to dismantle collective technology. What now? Joe asked the commander. Some of us wish to stay, it replied through Samantha's translation. To learn how to adapt to this world properly with permission, and the others. We'll take the remaining ships and leave your system. We have learned that conquest is not always possible. Some worlds fight back. Joe looked up at the blue sky, clear of alien ships for the first time in over a year. Earth doesn't belong to humans, he said. We just live here, but we've adapted to it over thousands of years. A lesson we learned too late, the commander acknowledged. As they spoke, Linda was examining a piece of collective technology. Their ships are already breaking down completely. Their perfect biology was too specialized, too inflexible. Earth demands flexibility, Frank added, constant adaptation. Later, watching the sunset from the roof of a partially rebuilt building, Joe and Samantha reflected on all that had happened. The word will spread, Samantha said, about Earth, about what happened to the Vraxians and the collective. Joe nodded. A planet that fights back, that protects its own. A warning to others who might try to take what isn't theirs. Above them, stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the survivors of 2 alien civilizations carried the story of Earth. Not just a world with humans, but a living system that defended itself. Earth wasn't a prison. It was a fortress. And humans weren't trapped on it. They were its defenders, adapted over countless generations to thrive in an environment that was deadly to those who didn't belong. The aliens had taken over, and found themselves trapped with the most dangerous species of all, humans who knew the power of their home world.